You remember the first time life refused to protect you. The world was still young then, soft, harmless, almost kind, and yet somewhere in that early landscape, a sharp edge waited for you. It did not ask permission. It did not warn you. It simply arrived, and with it came the first lesson every man must eventually learn. Life does not bend for you. It never did, and it never will. Pain speaks before wisdom, long before logic, long before you have the vocabulary to understand why your chest tightens or why your throat burns. It is the first language, ancient, immediate, unfiltered. Every boy carries a moment where something breaks inside him, a failure, a humiliation, a loss, a sudden collision with reality. That is when the world stops being a playground and reveals itself as a teacher. Musashi's first wounds weren't glorious. They were small humiliations, a father's scolding, a mentor's rejection, an early defeat that bit deeper than the blade of any sword. He learned early that expectations are illusions, and illusions die with sharp, clean cuts. Those cuts became the beginning of his shape. You grew up in a world padded with comfort and noise, a world terrified of hurt. But ancient life didn't care about your comfort. Pain arrived uninvited, and there was nowhere to hide. A boy became a man by meeting the first cut with open eyes. Pain is that blade, the one that slices away the false softness you cling to. It strips you of the idea that life owes you something. It dismantles the fantasy that strength will appear without struggle. It reveals the truth that most refuse to accept. Suffering is not a punishment. It is the beginning of awakening. In that first wound, you were introduced not to cruelty, but to clarity. The world said, "Look closely. You are not invincible, but you can be forged." That moment still lives inside you, whispering beneath distractions, waiting for you to finally listen. Because the first cut was not meant to break you. It was meant to wake you. There comes a point when pain stops striking and simply stands in your path, unmoving. It does not chase you. It does not threaten you. It only waits, and in its stillness, it measures the depth of your resolve. Musashi learned that most suffering isn't an attack, it's resistance. He met obstacles that did not care about his ambition or his hunger for mastery. Battles he couldn't win quickly, skills that refused to develop on his schedule. Life placed a mountain before him, and that mountain did not explain itself. You face the same kind of mountain, though you call it by different names. Discipline, loneliness, identity, self-respect. These are not enemies. They are immovable forces testing whether you will retreat or remain. Pain does not strike, it stands. And modern men break not because the hardship is unbearable, but because they cannot tolerate the discomfort of slow progress. They crave shortcuts, instant results, escape routes disguised as convenience. Ancient warriors had no such luxury. They sat with the ache in their bones, the sting of failure, the weight of waiting. They learned the language of endurance, the quiet negotiation between desire and discipline. They realized that the mountain moves only for the man who stops trying to run around it. Pain is a stone gate. It does not open because you beg. It does not soften because you complain. It yields only to presence, the kind of presence that stands firm, long after weaker men collapse. When Musashi confronted obstacles that seemed indifferent to him, he discovered that patience was not passive. It was a weapon. A man who can remain unmoved in front of an unmoving difficulty becomes unbreakable. And so you stand before your own mountain. It has waited 4 years. It is not your enemy, though part of you wishes it were. It is your test, silent, ancient, unforgiving. But if you dare to stop running and place your hand upon the stone, you may discover it is not there to block you. It is there to shape you. Pain has a voice, but it is not always a scream. Sometimes it speaks in the spaces between breaths, in the quiet you spend your whole life trying to avoid. Because in stillness, you cannot hide from yourself, and for most men, that is the deeper wound. Musashi understood this long before he became legend. Isolation sharpened him. Silence deepened him. The absence of noise became a mirror, revealing the smallest fractures within his spirit. He learned that pain does not always strike from the outside. Sometimes it hums from within, waiting for you to stop moving long enough to hear it. Today, silence terrifies you. The moment the distractions die, your mind becomes loud. The truth rises. The unresolved tensions surface. You feel the sting of loneliness, the weight of regret, the ache of misalignment. This is why modern men drown themselves in entertainment, noise, urgency, anything to avoid hearing the whisper of their own unaddressed pain. But that whisper carries wisdom. Pain clarifies. It strips your life down to what matters. When a wound throbs, suddenly your priorities rearrange themselves without your permission. You see what is essential and what is noise. You feel the truth you've buried beneath convenience. You learn humility, the kind that doesn't weaken you, but steadies you. Pain is a lantern, but like all lanterns, it only glows in darkness. When Musashi retreated into solitude, he carried his wounds into the quiet, and they began to illuminate paths he had ignored. The importance of focus, the necessity of purpose, the danger of ego. There is a moment, right after the resistance breaks, and before acceptance appears, where pain finally becomes a teacher. Not a tyrant, not a bully, a teacher. You stop wishing it away, and you start asking, what is this trying to show me? That question is where transformation begins. You have been running from silence for too long. But in the quiet, there is a truth that has been waiting patiently. Pain has been whispering to you. It is time to listen. A man imagines his battles are with the world, but the truth arrives brutally one day. The enemy is not outside. The real conflict lives underneath your ribs, behind your ambition, beneath the armor you show to others. And pain is the general commanding that internal war. Musashi's duels were not merely contests of blades. They were confrontations with himself, his fear, his arrogance, his doubt. Every strike he delivered outward echoed from an inner confrontation already fought, and every time he lost his center, the external world punished him for it. Your life follows the same law. The injuries others inflict on you fade, but the fractures inside you, the ones formed by insecurity, envy, hesitation, self-betrayal, these wounds linger. They shape your choices. They shape your identity. They shape your future. Modern men are haunted by invisible opponents, restless minds, anxious hearts, undisciplined impulses. They sabotage themselves long before the world touches them. They lose internal battles silently, battles no one sees, battles they pretend aren't real. Pain steps in as the drill sergeant. It forces you to face the disorder within. It cracks open the cluttered corners of your psyche. It reveals the places where you are weak, scattered, inconsistent. It demands alignment or collapse. This is why comfort can be dangerous. Comfort hides the battle. Pain exposes it. Musashi understood that a warrior who cannot master himself will lose to opponents he should have defeated. Pain was his internal compass, the burning signal that pointed toward the next area of growth, not punishment, guidance. You feel this war too, in your indecision, in your emotional storms, in the doubt that rises before every risk. Pain is not there to crush you. It is there to reveal you. It points at the part of you that remains untrained, the part still trapped in fear, and like an iron forge, it heats you, softens you, reshapes you, until the scattered pieces begin to align and the blade begins to form. The world sees only your battles, but pain knows the war inside you, and it refuses to let you stay unsharpened. Most men are not defeated by overwhelming hardships. They are defeated by their instinct to escape them. Running feels natural. Facing feels costly. And yet Musashi chose the opposite path, the steep path, the painful one, every single time. There is a masculinity in staying, in refusing to flee when your mind screams for relief, in standing firm, even as the storm tears at your resolve. A man does not become strong by chasing comfort. He becomes strong by refusing to abandon himself when things hurt. Pain is persistent. It doesn't vanish just because you turn away. It waits, like a shadow, and modern life offers endless doors to escape through, distractions that numb, stories that excuse, habits that pacify. You can drown 1,000 lessons in a single moment of avoidance. But ancient warriors didn't run. They didn't negotiate with difficulty. They met pain as an equal, a training partner sent to carve depth into their spirit. Every tear in their discipline stitched itself back stronger. Musashi slept in cold forests, trained until exhaustion blurred the edges of his vision, and confronted the discomforts most men would beg to avoid. Not because he enjoyed suffering, but because he understood its nature. Pain is a wave. Those who run from it drown beneath it. Those who face it learn how to ride its power. When you refuse to escape, pain transforms. It becomes manageable, sharper, more instructive. You begin to see its patterns instead of fearing its presence. And in that moment, you stop being overwhelmed and start being shaped. Staying with discomfort does not make you unfeeling. It makes you unshakable. It gives you a presence that modern men have lost, a steadiness born from surviving what others flee. Your strength will not be measured by how much you endure, but by how unwilling you are to abandon yourself when endurance becomes necessary. Pain already knows your limits, but it also knows your potential, and it refuses to let you walk away from who you could become. Every scar you carry is a message, written in a language older than memory. It says, "You have been wounded, and yet you remain." Pain leaves marks not to shame you, but to remind you that you are evolving. Musashi's life is a map of transitions, from reckless youth to disciplined warrior, from fierce swordsman to quiet sage. Each stage was carved through suffering. He did not hide his scars. He studied them. He allowed them to speak, and in their silent stories, he found direction. Modern men fear their wounds. They bury failures, conceal insecurities, pretend their past does not ache beneath the surface. They misunderstand the purpose of scars. They are not evidence of weakness. They are proof of survival. Pain writes your story in ink that does not fade. The moments you thought would break you became the exact moments that shaped your strength. The heartbreak you still remember. The humiliation you try to forget. The fear that once bent your knees. These are not burdens, they are chapters. In ancient times, a warrior's scars were marks of honor. Each carried meaning. Each carried lesson. Each declared, "I have walked through fire and returned." Your scars do the same. Pain is the invisible ink. It etches every lesson into your character so you cannot lose it. It teaches you to remember who you were, who you are, and who you are becoming. The wound closes, but the wisdom stays. Without pain, memory fades. Without memory, growth disappears. There is beauty hidden in every healed place. Not the beauty of perfection, the beauty of transformation. The beauty of a man who outgrew the weaker version of himself. You are not meant to erase your scars. You are meant to understand them. Because every mark on your spirit is pointing somewhere, toward the man you were built to become. In the end, pain is not your enemy. It is your initiation. The final threshold between who you are and who you were meant to be. It strips away illusion, weakness, and fear until only your truest form remains. Musashi understood this in his later years. After countless victories, after wandering lands and mastering disciplines, he realized that every lesson worth keeping had been paid for in suffering. Pain had been his most honest teacher, the only force that never lied, never flattered, never softened its truth. Strength was not something he found. It was something he uncovered by losing everything that wasn't real. You stand at a similar threshold. Modern life offers endless ways to avoid the very struggles that could free you. The world tells you that discomfort is a flaw, That challenge is unfair. That effort is a burden. And yet deep inside, you sense the truth. Without hardship, there is no identity. Without pain, there is no self. Pain frees you from dependency. It frees you from illusions of control. It frees you from the false comfort that keeps you weak. Every time you endure something you once feared, you reclaim a piece of yourself. This is the liberation most men never reach. Pain is a key, ancient, cold, precise. It opens the door not to an easier life, but to a truer one. A life where your strength is real, your discipline is earned, and your purpose is chosen rather than inherited. You are not here to escape suffering. You are here to understand it, to grow through it, to allow it to cut away everything that is not aligned with who you must become. Pain is not there to imprison you. It is there to unchain you. And once you step through that door, you realize something profound. The freedom you were seeking was never outside. It was always waiting inside the very struggle you tried to avoid. Pain has been your shadow, your guide, your mentor, not to harm you, but to prepare you. And if you have the courage to accept its teaching, you will become the kind of man who cannot be broken, because he has already walked through fire and learned to call it home.